Now Ushla, on behalf of the club, Conor Kirky, can you give a false more to Sean O'Connell?
Okay, Gurmila Malgui. I'll speak a bit bilingually. It's one of the things we excel at here at UCC is recognising the Irish language, and it's one of the things Cork City FC has placed a great deal of, I suppose, resources into, a great deal of time into, and a great deal of store into. So, Mato Malarum Shas Guelga Agus Asperla Erdus, then me Gothir Ashton Fauna Curveball. I'll translate as much as possible as I can as I go along. I won't say too much in Irish, but it's incredibly important to us to recognise the Irish language at Cork City and here at UCC. I'm speaking here as a member of academic staff at UCC, a member in the Faculty of Law, but also as a former board member at Cork City FC, and someone who's actively involved as a volunteer at Cork City FC. And also, I think that's very important to recognise here today, a source of great pride to me, a former AUL 2B player with UCC AFC. You know, I never quite made the higher levels, but AUL 2B is a tough level if you've ever played there. So, what I'd like to speak about initially is the value, like Dr. Murphy mentioned, about the value of education in football. When we established FURUS, which is the current ownership model of Cork City FC, it's a community ownership model. We sat down, myself and a number of others sat down to draft an initial constitution, which was carried forward by a number of other people, which became the co-op. And we thought, what are the things we value? And one of the things we really valued was the educational value of sport and of football. So one of the legally required aims of Cork City FC is to promote the educational value of football. So it makes perfect sense that Cork City FC and University College Cork would have a partnership, and a very successful and fruitful partnership. But there are other ways in which we seek to promote this. One of the things we felt very strongly about was that we didn't want footballers necessarily going to England and, for whatever reason, be it injury or bad luck or just maybe not making the grade and coming back to Ireland disillusioned with football and disillusioned with education because they would have missed out on a lot of their education. So we thought that if we invest heavily in our underage structures in particular, which had been ongoing since the time of Brian Lennox, who was here, who invested very heavily in the underage structures and had some fantastic underage teams, but if we invested in that and continued that investment under supporter ownership, that we could give players a platform where maybe they'd stay here, stay in Cork, finish their leavings, or maybe even come to college here in UCC, and I'm delighted to see some of the people who have done that are here. I think with Brian De Valeri at the back and Rob Lee Han as well, another scholarship recipient. So we gave this opportunity here, and it really has brought home to us the value of education and sport together. Dr. Murphy mentioned the partnership between UCC and Cork City FC was put on a formal basis 2 years ago, and as part of that a number of scholarships are provided between Cork City UCC and the Mardyke Arena, of course, to promote the value of education and football together. So we do see a tangible benefit in UCC, and we see it at Cork City FC as well. And some of the other educational angles we've looked at in Cork City FC is, like I said, the Irish language. So Mardyke Pashana Talfat doing like Graffiti and Gwaelin and Kirk and Keen. Tá first na Gwaelga in Ishkalta Board led Cork City FC Mark Marquiggan Oriac Figure. So Athleen Sheets on Bushana Talfat to make Gwaelin and Creelor Gnome and Cochra, agus fresin I Greelor on sale sport, agus gachin gnéad an sale I Gwitsna Gertig. As Tasha Shin Denta Green, as Tasha Shin on a Talfat to fresin, Mark Hogan on club on football. The club comes from the community just as much as the university, like Dr. Murphy mentioned, comes from the entire community. We want diversity. We want diversity in language and in culture as well at the football club. So we really inculcated a sense of Irish language at the club. We're the first football club in the world to have an Irish language officer, for example. No other football club in the world would have it. Now, you probably wouldn't have an Irish language officer at a club in France, but at the same time, we are very proud to be the first football club in the world to have a dedicated Irish language officer. And that involved promoting things like the Irish language. So, Chlora Figula, Spader Latinuk, not Chlora Figula, all Australia. There's a page in every programme at Cork City FC in Irish. And that's something that's very important to us, and something we're able to do through our involvement through education. And I'll finish up with just one or two of the other points we see through education is the research agenda. Research is very important to us here in UCC, and it's very important for football if we want to learn and develop as we go along. I'm delighted to see Nivo Mani here today, who headed up a project, an EC project, funding that came from Europe, which involved comparative research across all of Europe for improving governance in football. And I'm delighted to say there's a number of UCC departments involved in that project as well, myself in the Faculty of Law, and a number of colleagues in the Department of Economics, and some colleagues in the Department of History as well. So we're able to take research that happened here and apply it in a real sense. And this has been sent all around Europe, which has led to some requests for help from around Europe. So I got a phone call this time 2 years ago from a club in Scotland who said, we saw what happened at Cork City FC and we understand you were involved in the legal side. Can you explain to us how it happened? And I said, oh yes, I'm delighted to help. And I said, what club are you representing? Glasgow Rangers FC. I was somewhat surprised that they completely ignored my advice as it happened. So there's a certain schadenfreude there, what was to happen. But it was interesting to see that other people across Europe were coming and looking at excellence from Cork, from UCC, and from the EU project. It's been expanded now where we're looking at Erasmus funding for a project across Europe in terms of comparing different types of research and different types of experiences within football. And again, Niamh O'Malley is heading up that project. So it's something that we're all very, very proud to be involved in here at UCC. The research that brought Cork City back was UCC research again. It was research that was carried out here at the faculty level between colleagues. So it's something that we have great pride in UCC, but more particularly to see how Cork can develop, how we can bring more of these trophies here, how we can keep the best young talent here in Cork, let them develop here, and if they are good enough, then go play in other leagues in Europe, then get called up to the national side. If you look at the national side at the moment from a Cork City point of view, there can be anything to 4 or 5 former Cork City players playing for the national team. That's a source of great pride for everyone here in Cork and something we're delighted to be associated with. So this patron scheme is aimed at facilitating that in the future, and we'd appreciate all support because we really do feel that there is something special when we can combine the expertise in education, in sport, and just the pure passion Cork people have. You know, the passion we see on the pitch, the passion we saw on the pitch against St Patrick's Athletic on the first day of the season when the Cork City team came out and the St Pat's team were shell-shocked. They didn't know what happened to them, for the first half. When Cork City, just the passion of the Cork people came out so strongly there. So I really encourage you to get involved, to help us as much as possible, and to think of how it's not just a football focus, there is benefit from the university, from the educational side, and from society as a whole as well. Okay, Gurmil Malvi, come away.
Sean O'Connell, ladies and gentlemen, Karim Wilge, Shagan Fraud, I wonder. It was great when Cork City were christened Rebel Army and the song went Rebel Army, Rebel Army, and then when PG Carr would cover the events, the shed would go Cahir Kirky, Cahir Kirky. Great supporters, maybe the best supporters in the land. Anyway, we mentioned earlier Cork's first representatives in the League of Ireland. That was Fordsons, of course. That was the workers' team for one of Cork's greatest employers traditionally. Fords, of course. Everyone in Cork knew someone working in Fords or Dunlops growing up, certainly when I was young. Fordsons joined the league in 1924, 2 years later, winning the FAI Cup, the first club to take the trophy to Leeside, by the way. And the Blue Ribbon of Irish football is now sponsored by Ford, of course. It's the Ford FAI Cup. Their managing director is one of our own, and he's here tonight to talk to us about the link, the important links between business and sport. Could you welcome, please, Mr. Eddie Murphy, ladies and gentlemen.
Mayor of Cork County, President of UCC, friends of Cork City Football Club, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted that so many of you have turned up to hear me speak this evening. That said, I've no doubt that you'll enjoy Roy when he comes on board in a moment. Cork City's CEO Tim Murphy asked me to address you on the subject of the business of sport, and I'm happy to share some of my experiences with you. I work for Ford Motor Company, and being the company in size and scale that it is, Ford looks upon its involvement in sports as part of its marketing mix, and it is looking for a commercial return. That return is measured either by increased vehicle sales, increased brand awareness, more favourable brand opinion, or simply an alternative way of advertising. Back in 1992, when the Champions League was launched, Ford was one of the first international brands to associate itself with the new format of what was previously known as the European Cup. In my opinion, this was a marquee sponsorship opportunity, and it offered the company an unrivalled competitive advantage over the years. Over that period, we have bookended our Champions League sponsorship by availing of pitch-side perimeter board advertising messages, which are screened to every European home on every match night. This is advertising that we do not pay for, but it is part of a quid pro quo in return for part of our sponsorship fees. At the same time, TV advertisements and opening and closing programmes come with messages like, "Tonight's match is brought to you by Ford, Champions League supporter." Needless to say, matchday tickets become a very valuable currency as the games progress. And here we use the opportunity to invite major fleet owners and business partners to the matches. You may well remember this is the constituency Roy famously described as the Prawn Cocktail Brigade. On a serious note, these occasions lend themselves to relationship building, which is another reason for considering sports sponsorship. A final footnote and metric to demonstrate why Ford was associated with the UEFA Champions League is its mass appeal. This year's final from Lisbon will be seen by 300 million viewers in more than 200 countries worldwide. Now that's a huge marketing opportunity for us, and this year we'll be showing the merits of our all-new Ford Mustang. So given our European involvement with the Champions League, it was an easy decision for me in Ireland to dovetail with soccer by sponsoring the FAI Senior Cup from 2006 onwards, and a year later by becoming the official vehicle supplier to the FAI. Here again we negotiated offsets to the sponsorship fee, and I must say that there have been several outstanding finals during our tenure, which is a plus when broadcasting live on TV. The provision of 40-plus vehicles is part of our designation as the official vehicle supplier to the FAI. In return, we get branding opportunities, matchday tickets, player image rights, and access to the Irish management team. I've used this latter tie-in to invite Giovanni Trapattoni and Marco Tardelli to address the UCC soccer luncheon every year. The UCC Soccer Club was a club I had the honour of captaining to Collingwood Cup success 100 years ago, back in 1977. And I hope to extend a similar invite to Martin O'Neill and to Roy Keane at some stage in the future. Where does all this fit in with Cork City's patronage scheme, which has been launched here tonight? Well, I hope that I've touched upon some elements that you can look for in return for your euros. I believe that the three tiers of patronage which are on offer are worthy of your consideration, and they can be tailored to any business. This is superbly demonstrated by the club's main sponsor, Clonakilty Black Pudding, who has succeeded in bringing the wonderful aroma of their product to fans attending all of their home games. Now, I dare say that experience makes its way to the weekly shopping list, and black pudding is bought as a result. So well done to everyone at Clonakilty Black Pudding. That's, as a marketeer and as a salesperson, that's great brand endorsement. To the rest of you, whatever company you represent tonight, have a look at what a small investment in supporting Cork City might result in for your product or service. My keynote message to you is that sports sponsorship can work very well, and Cork City is a brand that is getting more and more appealing. Give it a go and make it work for you. Thank you.